Hey y'all. Oh man, it's been a day for me. So it's 11:30 a.m. here in Sydney on uh November 13th. So it's a Wednesday today. And I don't know if any of you have got small kids and you know trying to organize things or trying to organize your life around when kids get sick and oh boy, it's I can't even begin to tell you. It's been a challenge, but nonetheless, today is not very much about me. But if you are just tuning in to the live stream, please drop a comment in the chat and let us know where you're from. I always like to know where people are listening in from. And my very special guest today is Diane Calderon, who we've had on the channel before. And I'll bring her in, and then we'll do a little bit of an introduction so we can work out what who Diane is, and then we can begin taking questions. Hey, Diane.
Hi, Rod. How you doing?
Good. So I thought we might just say, just in case, just for people who haven't seen our previous interview that you did on the channel before, if you could just, I don't know if you've got like you having like an elevated pitch, or maybe just a 1 or 2 minute sort of introduction to about who you are, so that then people will get a bit of an idea of, well, I think I might ask Diane this question.
Okay. Short but sweet. I am Diane Calderon. I am an author. I wrote a book called Living and Loving Life All Day, Every Day. The book relates the story about my son's passing. He died at the age of 35 in a very unexpected and tragic accident. And it ended up changing my life. At the time he died, I was just a retired person taking care of my husband, who was going through Lewy body dementia. So it was a bit challenging. And my son was my backup and helper. But he went across the veil unexpectedly, and it left me kind of holding the bag, so to speak. But because he was able to reach out from the other side right away with signs, and I began to recognize them, it helped me go through that process of not only grieving his passing, but dealing with my husband and his decline and eventual passing over. So I put it all in a book, and I've been promoting the book, and I'm just excited to be here live with Rod. And if anyone would like to chat or have questions, or if I need to give you some more information, just let me know, Rod.
All right, great. So I think I've always found the idea of, ever since I was young, just the idea that, physical death is not the end. And, I've spoken to a lot of people like yourself that have experienced something that they, it can't be anything but their loved one communicating with them in a way that is irrefutable to you. So can you tell us a little bit about what those early signs were? Because I know it for you, it sort of happened fairly quickly after your son passed.
Right, it did. The earliest sign that I did not realize was a sign from him when it occurred, it took about 24 hours for that to hit me, was one evening I'm watching television, and I'm kind of looking at the screen and not that interested in the program. And in front of me, I saw a quick ball of sparkling lights, and they're about an arm's length away. And I saw these and thought, oh gosh, what is that? And they disappeared. And I looked over at my husband to see if he noticed, and he's looking at the television, and they appeared in front of him. He did not see these lights. They disappeared again. So now I'm looking straight ahead, and I'm thinking, okay, I must be losing it. I don't see things like this. So what is going on? And they appeared again. And this time they were in front of me, and then they moved over to my left, moved about a 90-degree angle, and disappeared. And then it drew my attention to a book, which was a book about Edgar Cayce. It's called There Is a River. And I see the book, and then I thought, oh, wait, my son will be up tomorrow, because he would come up to help me with my husband. And we had a discussion a few days ago about a belief I had that he had chosen me as his mother before he was born. And I see this book, and it's like, oh, it's in that book. I just know it's in that book. I picked up the book, I opened it, went right to that chapter where Cayce is talking about the souls getting ready to come in and choosing their life circumstances and their parents. So anyway, I got sidetracked, forgot about the lights, went on ahead and read that book. The next morning, I had my husband here. He wasn't doing well. I would get him up every morning, get him breakfast. And while he was at the table, I would run down to get a newspaper. And I'd have to drive down to the highway to get the newspaper out of the box. And on the way down, some birds, bluebirds, flew alongside the car, which surprised me because I'd never seen bluebirds in my area. And so I've got these bluebirds following me along in the car. And it made me think about when my son was a little kid, 3 or so years old, and he would sing the Zippity Doo-Dah song with Mr. Bluebird on my shoulder. And I could hear him and see him singing that song. And on my way back from the highway to the house, that my mind then drifted off into that song, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, Where Bluebirds Fly. So I thought that was kind of interesting to see the bluebirds. Get back to the house. A little while later, I get a phone call, and it's from a detective. My son lived a couple hours away, and the detective is from the area he lived in. And the detective proceeded to tell me that my son had been killed in a hit-and-run accident the night before. So that really, threw me off my world. I did have the presence of mind, though, to ask, what time did this happen? He gave me the time. So had a hard day processing the grief, calling friends and relatives, talking to my husband, who didn't quite get it, I don't think. When I told him our son had died, he just sort of patted me on the head and said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And that was the end of it. Later that evening, I'm sitting in the dining room thinking about a conversation I'd had with my son the few days before, the one where I had mentioned, "You chose me as your mom," but I had also said something to him about, one of us is going to die, probably me before you, but whoever passes over needs to promise that they will come and give a sign to the other person. I'm sitting there remembering the conversation and getting a little bit upset. It's like, Matt, you didn't give me a sign. You didn't give me a sign. And then boom, it hit me. Matthew died at 7 p.m. the night before. At 7 p.m. the night before is when those lights showed up in front of my face. And I knew then and there that that was Matthew's sign. He had showed up at my house at the moment of passing. I didn't recognize it. Of course I didn't at the time. You see some lights, you don't know what's going on. But the lights 24 hours later then made sense. Later on, I put 2 and 2 together and figured out the bluebirds that next morning were also a sign from him saying hello. And the bluebirds have become an important sign from Matt. And they've been a regular occurrence, usually in the wintertime when the bluebirds would be showing up in our area now, where they never did before.
That's amazing, isn't it? It's when you try and intellectualize, I think the biggest problem for us, because here in the physical world, is that we try to intellectualize what could possibly occur. How could we possibly communicate? Because of the way that we do it at the moment, with our 5 senses. Yeah. And it's a lot to try to wrap your head around. I'll just shout out Bernadette. Thank you for showing up. We're going to come back to your question. Anna, we'll just handle your question at the moment, because I think this is kind of along the lines of what I was just saying, is that, where do people actually go? So what's your view there nowadays?
My view on where people go, which is tempered a little bit by, my own philosophy and upbringing. I was raised Catholic, and we kind of believed in a heaven and hell, but that's been modified based on the experiences since my son has died. I learned a lot about the afterlife, and I've learned to do mediumship to a certain extent, and I've been able to connect with people on the other side. And everything that I have learned since my son's death and from my son himself is that there is another place. There is a spiritual world, which is our true spiritual home. We are just energetic human beings living this physical life. Our true home is in the divine, is in the other world. And this is where our people go when they pass over. There's no suffering. There's no worries on their side. They go over there, and it's just like they open the door and walk through, and they're back home. And it's a beautiful place, and they're surrounded by their loved ones, their pets who have passed over. They're surrounded by spirit guides. They're surrounded by angels, and they're surrounded by love. So I truly believe that anyone who passes over, no matter the circumstances, walks into that heavenly home, as some call it. I do know that sometimes there's people who maybe have a hard time crossing over. If it's a really quick death and nobody was prepared on this side, they may be a little bit lost for a bit, but there's always someone there to help them through that so that they're aware that they have moved over into the spiritual realm, because it is a bit of a shock for some. I do think, though, that before most of us transfer over, we have a little bit of an inkling that that is coming down the pike, and we're starting to get prepared in a spiritual sense so that when we do leave this earthly world, we are more than ready to go into the spiritual world. And they're sitting there watching us and looking over us and sending us signs as best as they can. They're sending messages if we could just hear them. And they're just hoping that we can make it through our days here on this planet until we get to meet them and go through that door and reach our heavenly home.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends who are, psychics and mediums, and there's a pretty common question that they get is like, I don't hear anything, or how can I speak with them? And my understanding is that you kind of like your vibration level is a really important thing.
Yeah.
And I think that, if you're very sad, those sort of low energy vibrations like sadness and despair, etc., and the spirit world is a different level of vibration, and it's you can't sort of bring the two together if the gap is too wide. So
Right.
to find somehow to calm yourself, or be in nature, or listen to music that you enjoy, or just find some way to lift your vibration a little, I think then those who are in spirit then there's a little bit more of a chance for them to provide some sort of a sign or some sort of a message to you. So I feel like, that's whereas you don't know where they are because you don't ever get a message. But I think it seems to me that would really help. And it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because when somebody does pass, especially if they pass suddenly, or even if they don't, you are in a very low, sad state for quite a long period of time. So yeah, ironically, that can really probably get in the way of getting any sort of messages from the other side.
Oh, definitely. I mean, consider that we are in these physical bodies in this third dimension, and it's kind of heavy. It's kind of dense. Our frequencies aren't that high, and it has to be that way because we're building, forward with a physical body that just isn't connecting with these higher levels. When you get into the spiritual realm, the frequency is much, much higher. The vibration is just incredible. You're more of an energetic feel than you are in this thick, dense world. And so, for instance, to be a medium, I need to find a way to raise my vibration up and then ask the spirit people to come down enough that I can hear them and see them and talk to them. For a person who is going through heavy grief, that makes it really challenging to come up and meet your spirit people. There are some suggestions and ideas that are helpful if you want to hear from your people and be aware of some of the ways they're communicating. And as you said, you could play music that reminds you of them, but try to keep it upbeat if you can. Nice memories, bring up the nice memories. Do some meditation. There's a lot of information out there, especially on the internet, on techniques to do some meditation. It helps a lot of people if they do a little meditative state every morning and just try to feel a little better, try to feel into that higher vibration, and try to block out some of the negative things in your life and just bring in that positive. Yeah, seems funny to say, oh, well, I'm in deep grief. What's positive about it? The positive part is that your loved one is right there and they're watching over you and they're trying to reach you too. But if there's a block because your frequency is low, they're not getting much through. So the best thing is to try to raise yourself up and be aware, be on the lookout for messages or signs. It could be something as simple as asking your loved one, give me something. I know maybe your favorite flavor is vanilla. Bring some vanilla into my life. And then you happen to go out to eat and your friend orders vanilla shakes for you. Oh, well, there's vanilla. Make that connection with your loved one. Oh, I asked for vanilla and here I'm getting a vanilla shake. Thank you. Thank you. And that can open the door to more experiences and more communication between you and your loved one. Just ask for something simple.
Yeah, Bernadette, meditation does help it's when they can come through. I also heard that it's not something I've tried, but it's something I will as I get older and people start to disappear around me, is to actually write letters and then like stick them on the wall.
Oh yeah.
Because it kind of makes sense in a way, doesn't it? If they can see and watch over you, then they could probably read a letter from you as well. So that's a way to, be able to communicate and also just talk. Like I've had, it was a guest I just had a few days ago, was is a medium, and she was doing a reading for one of her clients, and their Passover relative said that they always heard it. You've been talking to me all this time, and I always hear you. Like she had this, her client had this habit of talking to her relative who'd passed in the car, like just like having a chat, but she didn't actually fully believe that she was being heard, and the medium was able to say exactly, verified that was what she was doing, and that every time those conversations were heard, and it really changed things, for her, realizing that, she was actually being heard. There's a question here for, let's see, Bernadette. Thank you for all of your messages too, by the way, and dropping in. I don't know, this might be a mediumship thing for you. So, Diane, what do you think about that question?
Not that I was prepared to do the mediumship, just to explain a little bit. There are mediums who are really good at just turning it on, and some of them are born with this gift. I really have to work at it. So I wasn't really prepared to do the mediumship, but just it's a question that can come up often, messages from an adoptive mom or any other relative that there may have been some unresolved issues and trauma. Without giving a direct message, I can just say in general that anyone who has gone over to the other side and they have had some issues, some trauma, some hardships down here, maybe some relationship issues with the people that they've left behind, they go into a phase of looking back and seeing what their impact may have been, their life with those that they've interacted with. They get to feel whatever you had felt. If you had a person who maybe wasn't very nice to you in this life, they're going to feel how you felt when they express something, and vice versa. They can go through healing. There are what they call healing halls for people who have some issues and have had some trauma and had some hardships, where there are counselors and there's spirit guides and there's angels available to them to help them process and work through it and take a look at their lives in different ways. And no matter what, they're always looking back at the person that they've left behind and learning to love them unconditionally and sending that love. And so I would just suggest be open to reaching out to anyone who you feel has some unresolved issues and trauma, anyone in your life that has passed over to the other side, and send them your love and send them forgiveness if you can find that in your heart, if that's necessary, or if it's vice versa, that maybe they need to forgive you. Ask them for that forgiveness, and it's going to work. You just have to send that heart feeling out, and it will be reciprocated. I think they need as much help sometimes over there as we might need here, but it's a mutual arrangement, and I think you can work it out with them. Can I tap into the specific person? Probably not. I could just say that if I were, in general, they're going to come back with, we love you and we appreciate you and we're sorry. But I can't say that I can tap right into your adoptive mom. It's just a general statement from all of the medium readings that I have done, and I am aware of others who have done medium readings. It's all about love over there. And so part of us down here have to learn how to break through and show our love for them, and then we can receive their love for us.
Sometimes people will say, oh God, it's so wonderful over there. Why do we even bother coming here? Which I think is a fair statement, right? But my take on that, and I'd like to be interested in your take too, is that there is the real growth of us as a soul, as an eternal being, only really occurs in those difficulties and the challenges that are presented to us, emotionally, physically in this world. And it's a tough environment, but you just there's so many people you can think about that went through really tough experiences. I forget the name of this lady who grew up in North Korea who wrote a book. I forget her name now. It's like Eun Park or something like that. Anyway, but it was such like, constantly being starved, and everything about their existence is completely controlled, and you just think, oh my God, that's such an awful way to actually live. But the strength of character and fortitude that she has is just indomitable now as a result of her experience. And she would never want to, as bad as it was, she just wouldn't want to take it back, because she wouldn't want to be not the person that she is now. It's not always a comfort for people to know that, but it just makes sense to me that that's why we come here. These tough experiences are what actually help us evolve and get better and grow. Yeah, what do you think?
Absolutely. I think that there's many ways to look at it, but in general, we are one consciousness on a spiritual level that has individuated into these souls. And as souls, we want to experience all the different facets of life. So we're given these opportunities to come in and live these lives and experience various things. Earth school is what some people call it. You come in and maybe you start out in a low level, maybe you're starting in first grade, and the lessons aren't so hard, aren't so bad, and you learn something, but you don't learn as much as if you were coming in 12th grade or in college level. Each successive life is going to be a little bit harder, a little more challenging, because you want to learn more. And what you're learning is contributing to the whole, to the essence of the whole. So every time you come in, you learn something, you move on to the spirit world, you decide you're going to come back because there's something else you want to learn. I'm not quite sure why we want to learn all of the hardships and the struggles that we do, but I have a sense that without hardship, without struggle, without those challenges in our life, if we just came here to live a happy, lovely life, then it's not much different from being in the spirit world. In the spirit world, you don't have those challenges. So you've got to find a different vehicle to come in and grow, because we all want to grow. We want to learn compassion and forgiveness and unconditional love of our fellow man. And so we set up these conditions. We come in here, blank slate when we come in, not knowing how hard this life is going to be. We face all kinds of challenges. We have certain choices to make. When we finalize this life and get on the other side, we get to review it and say, I had these things I wanted to complete. I got about halfway through. I think I have to go back and work on the other part. Or I got 2 things done out of 10. Who knows? Some people maybe have accomplished most of their plans in one life, but I think that's rare. We just are always looking to be better. And to get better, we have to face some of those challenges, because spirit world is too easy. Earth world is too hard. We like to come here and try the hard, so that when we get over to the other side, we can share our knowledge with everyone else.
One of the best analogies I heard was, it's like playing a game of poker with everybody's cards shown. Like, that's not going to be a fun game at all. There's no excitement or joy or challenge in that, and you're just not going to be interested in doing it, are you? And you kind of apply the same thing to life. If you knew everything that was going to happen, it was all sort of laid out in front of you, it doesn't make any. There isn't any. There's just nothing in it for you. I don't think. It's a completely different thing, not knowing what's coming. You can. I like that you can. You can make plans, and you can do your best to make those plans, and then things go south, and you think, oh my God, why on earth did this happen to me? Why did this have to happen to me? And then 5 years later you go, well, yeah, I can see now. But you can never see it in the moment, can you? Or even like within a few months, but there's always this sort of later on down the track where you go, yeah, I can see why that happened now. All right, so let's just see. Bernadette's got a what to say here. So tell it. I'm fascinated that you have chosen to learn mediumship, Diane, because my experience mostly is that people are kind of born with this ability to some degree, and it must be challenging for you to learn. So can you give us a bit of a feel for like how it's evolved? Were you particularly drawn to learn? You thought, I've just got to do that, and you know, how's it going for you?
Okay, I wasn't particularly drawn to it. I just kind of got, I don't know, my life path just went that way where the opportunities opened up. And I was curious about mediumship. Originally, when my son had died, I didn't think much about mediums and connecting with the afterlife. It just wasn't something, you know, at the top of my plate. Had other things to do. But after he had passed and I realized he was sending signs, and it intrigued me. I had been a researcher for part of my career, and, you know, I was always curious as to how do things work and why do they work, and are there answers to the mysterious? So I decided to delve in and learn about spirit communications and afterlife, and I learned about mediums and mediumship. I had a medium reading that helped explain what had happened that put my son in the position in which he did cross over. And it was just so incredible to hear a medium tell me what my son experienced, that I needed to know more. I wanted to know more. I eventually was led through the hand of my son, which I now know, to work for someone who is a medium. And she was gracious and kind enough to allow me to attend the classes that she was giving to her students. And so she would let me attend classes on psychic development, intuition development, beginning mediumship, intermediate, advanced, and then through a certified mediumship program. It wasn't something I had ever thought I would do, but the opportunity was there. So I took all of these classes. I followed all of these instructions, did the exercises. I worked really, really hard at following the procedures for someone like me that I could use to make those communications with spirit. My teacher, my mentor, the person I was working for, was born with the gift. She saw spirits when she was a child. Me, I don't recall seeing spirits. I just know that I was a bit intuitive in my life, but I didn't pay much attention to it. I just thought everybody had an ability to know if the phone rang, it might be grandma calling. But with her help, I was able to tune in and tune up my own abilities to a point where I can do the mediumship. I have a procedure that I use to get what they say, get in the power before I do a reading, to ask the spirit people to come. I have a team of spirit guides that work with me and work with the loved ones of the person I'm going to be reading, to meet with them, to tell them how I work, to tell them what I can see and understand. And then we ask the spirit people to come in, and I get messages, I get feelings, emotions, I get all kinds of stuff that I can then relay to the sitter. And then once the session is done, you know, I'm done. I don't get the spirit people hanging around me. My mentor, a little different. They can show up a little early for her. They can hang around a little bit. I don't get that so much. I have to work at it. And I'm glad I've learned how to do that. I just never thought I had the ability. But the point for me would be that anybody like me who maybe wasn't born with this and didn't think they could do it, you can. You can. With the right instruction, the right direction, and the practice and the work, you can connect with other people's spirits. You can also connect with your own. It just helps to follow some of the steps and stay focused and work hard at it. You can do it.
Yeah, that's a pretty important distinction. Is I think, especially if you're drawn to it, if it's not something that you encountered as a child, then it's still something that you can learn as well. I feel that applies with anything, you know, in the spiritual realm. I've had you know, lots of conversations with different mediums, and some have said that like there's a path to mediumship for me, and then I also feel like there's more of a path of just like learning about this connecting with spirit, like, you know, sort of a more of an out of body experience kind of thing. And I'm definitely much more interested in that. And then I actually had a medium confirm this for me the other day, because you know, if you want to do mediumship, it feels like you can go to, what's the college in the Arthur Findlay College in the UK. That's like the ultimate, right?
Yeah.
And if you want to learn more about the out of body experience and astral traveling, that sort of thing, then you've got the Monroe Institute in Virginia. And then when I kind of raised it up, she said, well, it seems to me like, you know, what she received as far as the reading of me was that you're way more interested in, and you're curious about going to the Monroe Institute.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as you said, you know how you know when somebody says something, you knew the answer was going to be that anyway. You know that's the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think it's good to follow your curiosity. But I didn't have any of those experiences growing up. I know I had some kind of crazy dreams that were perhaps related to it. And you can learn, and I've been able to have some experiences. So I've got some more questions here from Bernadette. Past lives. Yeah, this is a very interesting topic, this one, and you could say reincarnation is all part of this. Does the topic of past lives come up for you, when you're speaking with other people, even clients, or with your teacher?
It does. In fact, right now I am helping teach a class with my teacher, my mentor, and the subject matter I taught last week was reincarnation and past lives. So, I've gotten pretty immersed into the concept and some of the theories, past lives and reincarnation. I mean, I can tell you that if you go way back into early human history and look at man when we were hunters and gatherers, we were very connected to nature and to spirit, and they believed that there was reincarnation. Over time, those ideas were set aside in our Western civilization as religions developed and decided that there wouldn't be reincarnation. Instead, we'll have a resurrection and there's some punishment, heaven and hell. So we've been raised in an environment in Western civilization to kind of put aside reincarnation and think nothing of it. It's re-emerging with new spirituality and some new ideas and influences from different religions. And it's becoming much more accepted as a standard that there is a reincarnation. We do have past lives. There's several therapists out there who have practiced and honed techniques for people to have past life regressions and to also have life between lives regression. So in a past life regression, a hypnotherapist, somebody who's really trained at doing this, can lead you into going back and visiting a past life and experiencing some of that life, and then bringing that information forward through a session. A lot of them do that. For instance, Dr. Brian Wise is an expert at this. He'll do sessions to help heal somebody who might be having an issue in this life, and they can go back and find a past life that has a connection to what's going on today. And by revisiting this past life, they can find a way to heal today. Michael Newton Institute in California has developed the life between lives regression, where you can not only see a little bit of your past life, you go back to that, but you can also see what happens after you passed over into the afterlife and before you were born into this life. And this is where a lot of the concepts of the soul having some control over looking back at what they had done in the prior life, but also planning what they wanted to do in the coming life and seeing what the possibilities are occurs in that life between lives as they're meeting with their guides and their spirit people. So there is a lot going on in these regressions for anybody who would be interested in going back to a past life. So if you have visions of them, you may be visiting them in your dreams or your meditative states, tapping into those past lives. That's really interesting, Bernadette, that you are able to do that. One suggestion would be keep track of that, write it down in a journal. And if you ever have an opportunity to actually do a past life regression, talk to that therapist and see if you might be able to visit one or two of those lives that you've jotted down and get more information. Because usually in a dream or a vision, you're just going to get a piece. But in an actual session, you can kind of go through that life from the beginning to the end and the points that are important to you or for your soul to know. So anyway, I truly believe in past lives. I've had some small regressions with my mentor. She's done that with me. I've never had a full-blown regression, but I do know people who have, and it's been phenomenal for so many to heal or to understand some of the situations that they're dealing with in this life.
Yeah, it's on my bucket list. When you mentioned Life Between Lives, I only just recently read this book, actually. I think 2 of his books. And what a fascinating thing is that it's not just a regression to a previous life, but then to jump between that stage between life ending and life beginning. And then it's almost like now you're in the spirit realm and you're asking questions of guides and guardians, etc. It's really, really fascinating. Great. I can't recommend Michael Newton's books enough, and I think the reason why they're so popular is and so well researched. And I think it's thousands of different regressions that he documented initially, and was never going to write about them. And I think it was like 25 years after his practice began, that's when he wrote the first book, and then he's written a couple of others after that. Excuse me. Bernadette open. You know what? There's not always a lot of people that tune into these live streams, but I think that those who do, there's a reason why this popped up in your feed, and it's Bernadette sounds to me like she's kind of a little like has some latent abilities that have been there from a child. And for people like that, where do you think they should start to help to sort of hone those and understand and use them in a beneficial way there, Diane?
Well, there's a few ways one could start. And one of the ways that I was led to in the early days, before even getting involved with the person who became my mentor, was to take a look at some of the literature that is out there on building up your psychic abilities. I have one book that was You Are Psychic. Can't remember the name of the author, but it has all kinds of information in there and tips on how to build up the abilities, how to recognize them, how to work with them, how to focus on them. So I would look at some of that literature. I think James Van Praagh also has a book that helps people kind of build up their abilities. So that is one way to do it, is get some of that literature, follow, what they're recommending. And
does it look like that book? Was that the book there?
You Are Psychic. There it is. I think that's
Pete
the
Sanders?
one. Yeah. And then James Van Praagh, but he's got so many, I don't remember which one. And then there's websites. There's a lot of great teachers out there. I learned a lot from Mavis Patilla. Can't remember the name of the book now. Mavis Patilla was a famous British medium, and there's a book about her that kind of guides how she went through her training, and it gives you some guidance on yourself on how to do the training. So there's a lot of literature out there. Just do a Google search and see what resonates with you. The person I work for, Suzanne Wilson, also has a book called Soul Smart, available on Amazon. And it's a nice introduction to people who would like to communicate with their loved ones. It gives some basic guidelines and some ideas on how to open up that communication. And she has some meditations in that book. So since I work for her, of course, I recommend it, but it is an excellent resource for anybody who wants to get started.
And what's her name again?
Suzanne Wilson. And the book is Soul Smart.
Okay. I'll just see if I can bring that one up.
Yeah, Suzanne is Susanne.
Yeah. Let's have a look. Might be because I'm on Amazon, or I've just said this Kindle store. Anyway, I'll keep looking for that one. See if we've got any other questions there. You were referring to the Life Between Lives books before. Is there anything that you're reading at the moment that you're finding particularly fascinating, Diane?
Well, I was preparing for that class on past lives and reincarnation, and it led me to revisit books about Edgar Cayce and his teachings. And so when I finished putting together my class, presentation, I have been revisiting those books, and it's like, I forgot Edgar had said this, and oh my God, look at that. And so I'm getting excited about Edgar Cayce, and maybe I'll teach a little class on him, because there was so much that he did over his life with psychic healing and predictions and talking about the past lives. And one of the books that I had on my shelf that I'd forgotten about was about man's destiny. And it's just fascinating reading at this time, especially because there's just, the world in America has sort of turned upside down. And so it's kind of nice to read some of this older material to get a little insight as to, hey, this isn't the first time the world has turned upside down for a group, and we've always somehow made it out of some of that weird stuff. So that's what I'm really reading right now, this old stuff about Edgar Cayce. I'm just really digging it right now.
Yeah, he's like the OG, isn't he? Of
Oh man,
sort of psychic, we sort of made it into a science in a way.
yeah,
But I haven't. I've had a lot of people mention him, but there's so many books to cover. It's not one I haven't read. I haven't been drawn to read his stuff yet, but yeah, it's I've had so many people, and you can see it. They're extremely popular books
yeah.
on Amazon as well. Another question here from Bernadette. Thank you for these. Do you communicate with pets?
I have not focused on communicating with pets. I have done readings where someone's loved pet comes through in spirit, and I can pick up, some of their feelings and a little bit of the information that they'd like to send to their person. But as far as telling you about your cat, I'm kind of blank on that. I have a dog that's getting older, and I had to go to a pet communicator to ask her to talk to my dog to tell me what he wants to tell me through her. So I don't communicate with pets, but I do know a couple of people who do. And it is fascinating because, yeah, our pets understand us. They know more than we give them credit for. In fact, I think they know everything and they just can't tell us. They're just so bright and so loving, and they're just unconditional love. So sure, your cat understands you and understands your moods, but if I could read your cat and tell you what he's exactly thinking or what he would like you to do or eat or whatever, I would be honored to do so. But I'm not able to do that.
Yeah, one of my previous guests, who I'm just gonna, it was Laurie Spagna. So for those of you, if you're interested in the communication with pets, you should definitely look up Laurie and look up her interview on my channel, and then so it's Laurie Spagna, and yeah, she kind of like fell into working with people's pets out of just being a everyday psychic, and yeah, it's pretty fascinating. And there's some great YouTube channels actually on people especially people who like work with horses. And they can tell them if they've got a pain somewhere, like what the problem is, or they don't like the paddock or the food, or they miss going out for rides or something, if they've not been ridden for it's like really interesting. They're just like almost like people, but they are very highly intelligent creatures that have their own wants and needs, and they provide this kind of bridge between the owner and the animal, which is really like I burst into tears sometimes when I'm watching it. It's like, oh, that's just amazing,
Mm-hmm.
So Bernadette, yeah, she'd like to bring back Laurie. Look, I'll ask her. I think it was, when did I last have Laurie on? It was a while ago. Yeah, it was probably going back around 6 months. I'll ask her. Yeah, did you? Obviously, you must have enjoyed her interview, but she's she's a pretty busy lady, but it's enormous strength of character. I was really impressed by how clear she was about what they're doing good in the world, and that's what she did. And it's so many people, I think, in this kind of space, like doing what you do, Diane, and other mediums, etc., they face a lot of, backlash and ridicule, and their time has come. It's coming, or it's come, and so now they're much more well respected. People who are real high flyers in business, etc., go and seek them out for advice, and I reckon that's terrific. You think back, 100 years from now, it was a completely different story. You just couldn't, you had to live in secret if you had these, gifts or abilities. There wasn't a way that you could contribute to the world other than, really under the radar, which I think is very encouraging. Okay, so I think we've pretty much, I've picked up all the questions here. Bernadette, you've been a big contributor today. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you too, what you're doing for the world, Diane. I think, it's you've basically come out of retirement to write books and probably working as hard as what you ever have done. So yeah, good for you. Is there anything that you want to leave the people with that might be watching this or might watch it on the replay before you wrap it up?
Well, I would just leave a message to the people to know that, you know, you're always surrounded by your spiritual people, your loved ones, your relatives, your pets. They're always there on the other side watching over you. So just know that, and talk to them, ask them to come in a dream, invite them in for a meditation session, ask them questions. They're always there. So you're never alone. And they're not watching everything you do, but they do keep an eye on you. And just know that it's all about love. We kind of forget that we're love beings here on this planet because of the challenges and the hardships that we go through on this planet. We lose sight of the fact that we're here to be reconnected and one with the universe and with the divine source. So just keep that in mind. We're just here for a short time. It's a blink of an eye in the spirit world, and everything's going to be okay no matter what hardship you face. Keep your chin up. It's all going to be okay.
All right, I like it. So we've got just check the show notes. If you want to get in touch with Diane, it's dianecalderon.com. It's her website's in the show notes, as well as her book, which is Living and Loving Life All Day, Every Day, on Amazon. Mm-hmm. And thanks for coming back, Diane. Appreciate that. And
thank you very much
to everyone who's choosing to tune in and support the channel. I end up with 2 live streams on this week, so we'll have another one tomorrow as well with Jacob Nelson, who was a pretty popular guy. He's an interesting dude as well. So yeah, that's all for now. We're going to sign off, and I'll see you all again soon.
Okay, thank you very much.